Information Technology by Michael Bailey and Justin Snipes. What is information technology? Information technology is the study or use of systems, especially computers or telecommunication, for storing, retrieving, and sending information. The items that we will address are the competency level of the staff, and that must be assessed to make sure that they receive the proper training. And since training is an essential part of implementation, we will focus a lot on that. Addressing the attitudes of elderly, the user resistance during implementation, and unintended consequences of IT implementations will also be addressed. Where to begin? The competency level of staff must be assessed to ensure they receive the appropriate training. One important factor is a person's perception of their computer competency, or CSE. Those with higher CSE tend to be motivated to learn and perform tasks better. However, this perception doesn't have to necessarily be a reality. Competency. Developing CSE is critical to increasing skills training. Trainers should know when to develop skills and when to develop CSE to maximize the training. This can really shorten the amount of time taken for training. A person's motivation can be increased with competency. When a process is new, we require more attention to learn it. The closer we come to mastering it, the more automated it becomes, and we have to think about it less. For those of you that learn to type, you can now do so without even thinking about the keys your fingers will hit next. This is sort of the same concept that we go for when we're implementing a new IT process. Computer anxiety can negatively affect competency and learning, and this is something that trainers will need to address. Another step in the training process is motivation. Motivation must be addressed because employees' willingness to learn will severely affect how well the training will go. All the skills and knowledge in the world are useless if there is no motivation to apply it. Motivating individuals learn more, learn faster, and overcome obstacles. And the trainer, a good trainer, has to address these to make sure that the employees that are being trained are motivated to learn and use the new skills that they are developing. So by now, all of you should be able to answer the question, why even train the staff? And since we've already addressed that training is essential for successful implementation, you should already know several reasons of why it's important that this training be done correctly. Why waste money? This is a place that many companies can find themselves in if they do not take the time on the front side to actually plan and develop an IT implementation. If they don't look at their staff and see what training will be needed and necessary to successfully implement, it could be a waste of money. Another waste could also be the fact that the software or process that they're implementing will be obsolete by the time they get it fully implemented. And this is something that companies need to plan for before they decide which project that they would undergo. And this aspect, size does matter. The bigger the business, the more resources that are given to IT initiatives. This requires more IT training for initiatives to be effective. It really doesn't matter how much you spend if you do not train correctly, and without correct training, a business would waste money. A social cognitive theory is a learning theory that is measured in three groups: cognitive outcome, affective outcome, and skills based outcome. In order for training to be effective, studies have shown that they need to focus on all three of these areas. The social cognitive learning theory, as it relates to e learning, would be the same. We would still focus on the same three areas. Please see the chart on the next slide for further explanation. Self regulated learning strategies have been studied and have been found to be highly effective, which makes this a very valuable tool for companies to use when implementing or training employees to make sure that they can get the most for the money that they are investing. Finding the right method for the staff is a very important question a company will need to ask. Since every company is different, this would help tailor make the training effective. On this slide, you will see certain items that scientists and other research studies have deemed important when selecting the right method for the staff. The level of training is actually another question many companies need to ask. Based off of the initiative that they are doing, will determine what is the correct level of training or implementation that needs to happen. If a company is installing an enterprise resource planning system, this would be more intensive training than just changing over an email server. And these questions will need to be answered up front to tailor make a training program, especially designed for the staff to be most effective. There have been a number of studies done on training, and most of them agree in this one aspect that training should be divided into three primary sections. The first is the initiation phase, the next will be more of a formal training or learning process, and then there needs to be a post training phase. And we will dive into these a little deeper as we go forward. Training does a number of things. The first one would be it updates skills that employees have. This can increase satisfaction, increase employee commitment to the organization, and also improves organizational competencies. Another step of training many companies need to answer is who gets trained first, especially if it's an initiative that IT needs to be formally trained on. Most agree that management, IT should be trained first, then the business unit should be trained, and then there should be a delay between the actual training and the implementation to give employees a chance to practice before they have to switch over to the new initiative or software. Another benefit of training is it also reintroduces the organization to their IT or tech support. This support has always been there, and a number of employees probably don't even understand or know all the services that they provide. And this could be an emphasis in any kind of training initiative to help educate employees on services that are already currently available to them. Since we all don't learn at the same pace, there needs to be a staggered approach to training which will encompass all the different learning styles of the staff that we have. Since most people are resistant or hate change, there is going to be user resistance to any implementation project that a company takes on. This needs to be anticipated and minimized at all costs to promote a healthy transition into the new process. There are many benefits to training, and some of them are listed below. See if you can think of a couple more that we didn't add on this slide. So, what about the elderly? Or should we say the more seasoned employees who might not be as computer savvy as some of their younger counterparts? Here are a couple ways that we can address this issue to make sure that everybody gets the proper training needed. Studies have shown that many of your more seasoned employees still want to learn new initiatives, if only just to keep up with the changing world around them, grandkids, or use a cell phone that they really never had to think about in previous years that is becoming more of a necessity as we go forward. The biggest thing that can hold a senior employee back would be their anxiety with computer skills or the fact that they don't believe that they can adjust to a new way of doing it. And this just needs to be addressed up front to explain that this technology will probably make their job a little easier and kind of go through it step by step in the training process to help alleviate some of that anxiety. Technology is great, but it can also have some unintended consequences, and these need to be addressed or looked at to assess security risks for a company. The first one would be going to a digital database may make information more readily accessible to hackers or people to steal it. Another would be the fact that technology sometimes can limit some of the more routine jobs that once were held by employees. Since we've already gone over the training process, can you look at this slide and see some ideas of how a company would overcome these typical objections to any kind of change or implementation? A company wants voluntary use of any kind of software initiative that they do, and to get a higher voluntary use from employees, here are some factors that will need to be addressed or considered when implementing any kind of new software. This chart will illustrate how a company can use training to create and foster an environment that employees will want to and will readily use any kind of software initiative that has been introduced. Mike and I would like to thank you for your time and hope that you learned something from this module about IT training and implementation. And successful training will result in not maybe literally a kiss, but it will result in money saved and more efficient employee work environments. Thanks again.